Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shenanigans Show. So, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we're talking about Emily McIntire's Never After novels, the Never After series, all 6 of them. It's more so of like a ranking of them, and at first, so the first part, words are not coming easily. The first part we're going to talk about is I'm just going to go through the books, talk about the descriptions, and then after that is going to be the ranking. And just to give you all like a little bit of a overview of what these books are about before I rank them. And at first I was going to do it as like the tier ranking, but then I decided, since I still haven't like quite figured out like with editing wise how I would incorporate that, I just figured showing you the physical books and then going from there, that would be the best way to do this. So before we get into this, I want to do like a disclaimer. So these books, this series, are a series of standalone well, they're not really interconnected, sort of interconnected thematically speaking, but they're a series of standalone spicy dark romance books where the villain gets the love interest. The villain gets the girl trope, except for like one of them, it's more so like she's the villain, or in 2 of them she's the villain, you know. So villain gets love interest, and again spicy. So just, there are spice and content trigger warnings, and I've linked down below Emily McIntire's website, as well as the trigger content warnings page and the FAQ page for the series. And I'm not calling these retellings because Emily McIntyre does not call them retellings. It's kind of like a reinterpretation of the story in which the villain gets the girl. So it's like, if it was an actual retelling, the villain would not get the girl, you know. So interpretation of the story. So with all that said, let's go over the 6 books that are in this series. Again, it's the Never After novels, Never After series. First up is Hooked, and basically this is a Peter Pan inspired story where Wendy and Captain Hook get together. Of course, she's aged up a little bit more. But to read the description, he wants revenge, but he wants her more. James has always had one agenda: destroy his enemy, Peter Michaels. When Peter's 20-year-old daughter, Wendy, shows up at James's bar, he sees a way in, seduce the girl, and use her for revenge. It's the perfect plan until things in James's organization begin to crumble. Suddenly, he has to find the traitor in its midst, and his plan for revenge gets murkier as he starts to see Wendy as more than just a pawn in his game. Wendy had always been cloistered away most of her life by her cold, wealthy father, but a spontaneous night out with friends turns into an intense and addictive love affair with the dark and brooding James. As much as she knows James is dangerous, Wendy can't seem to shake her desire for him. But as their relationship grows more heated and she learns more about the world he moves in, she finds herself unsure if she's falling for the man known as James or the monster known as Hook. So that's what this one is. And then next up is Scarred. So I think this was like Sarabi and Mufasa. I'm pretty sure it's Sarabi and Mufasa. So Scarred is the second one. She doesn't belong to him, she belongs to the crown. Prince Tristan. This one was a little bit cheesy, and at first I thought this was more like centered in like Africa, or an Africa inspired style kingdom, or it was inspired by an African country, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like that. But anyway, Prince Tristan Fossa was never destined for the throne. That was always his brother, Michael. And again, like I feel like for this one, for some of these, like some of the names are a little too on the nose when like you're not trying to have the names line up. You know, this one was a little too on the nose for the names. Anyway. The same brother responsible for both Tristan's tormented childhood and the scar that mars his face. When their father dies, Michael is set to assume the throne, and Tristan is set to steal it. The leader of a secret rebellion, Tristan will stop at nothing to end his brother's reign. But when Michael's new betrothed, Lady Sarah Botro, arrives, Tristan finds himself in the middle of a new kind of war, the kind that begs the question of what's more important, the crown or the woman about to wear it. Sarah has one plan: marry the king and eradicate the Fossa line, even at the risk of her own peril. But she never expects the scarred prince. He's dangerous, forbidden, and one of the men she's sent to kill. But the line between hatred and passion has never seemed so thin, and secrets come to light. And as secrets come to light, Sarah grows unsure of whom she can trust, torn between vengeance and the villain she's supposed to love. She was never supposed to love. So this is enemies to lovers. And this, I think, this was one of the closest to enemies to lovers. I think I've talked about some others on my channel, but this was one of the closest to enemies to lovers in a book for that trope specifically. That it's one of the few that's come close to that trope. Okay, so the next one, it's the only one out of this series that isn't Disney inspired. Breathing. This one is Wretched, and this one is Wizard of Oz, which I think would be a good one for any Wicked fans out there, considering. Breathing. One moment. Okay, we're good. A woman can be great and terrible too. Evelina Westerly has always been the bad guy. As the brains, brawn, and botanist behind her family's drug empire, she's her father's relentless secret weapon. After a one-night stand with a gorgeous man at a nightclub, she's sated urges and is back to her former ways. That is, until the same man shows up as the new Westerly lackey, under a totally different name. But Nicholas Wordsworth's real secret is much more dangerous than an alias. He's an undercover DEA agent, and he's hell-bent on destroying the drug trade that devastated his family. Evelina embodies everything he's against, and he's been sent here to be our downfall. Yet the more they learn about the darkness in each other's hearts, the more alike they seem, and when hatred turns to something more, Nicholas will have to decide whether he can love a wretched woman, even if it means bringing both of their lives to ruin. So that's what this one is about. And again, Wicked, so if you need a good Wicked inspired, well, I was about to say Yellow Brick Road inspired. What's the name? Wizard of Oz inspired book. There you go. And then the next one is Aladdin inspired. It's Twisted. And this one, again, it's kind of obvious that Jasmine and Jafar, she's his diamond in the rough. He's her worst nightmare. Yasmin Karam, again, like this where it's a little bit on the nose where it's spelled Yasmin. So it's like, it's a little bit on the nose where it's like you could have just done Jasmine, you know? Anyway, daughter of one of the richest men in the world, has never known strife. So when her beloved father falls ill, she's determined to make his final days his happiest. His last wish to see her married to a man of his choosing. Except Yasmin's heart already belongs to someone else, a servant, a man her father would never consider worthy of me. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, Yasmin strikes a desperate deal with her father's right-hand man, Julian, a little bit on the nose, Julian Jafar, not realizing he has his own twisted agenda. Julian Faraci has one goal: become the most powerful man in the world. He's built a future from broken bones and faded bruises, never caring whom he hurt along the way. But when his mentor falls ill, he finds himself on the verge of losing everything, and will stop at nothing to inherit what's rightfully his, even if it means forcing a woman he can't stand into marriage. Yasmin is a brat who speaks out of turn, and he's the villain of her story. But he decides she'll be his no matter what it takes to convince her. So that's what this one's about. So again, all of these are spicy dark romances, twisted tales, so to say, and never after novels. So the next one is Crossed, Hunchback of Notre Dame inspired. I think this one's like one of the more darker of the dark romances, considering the Hunchback of Notre Dame, especially like how dark the Disney one is. So anyway, he is righteous, she is sin. Father Cade Frederick is a holy man brought up in the streets of Paris. He has dedicated his life to the church, but there's a monster that lingers just beneath the surface. A sickness, once that bleeds darkness and feeds on the damned. When he's tasked to become a priest in Festival, Vermont, a town both beautiful in architecture and riddled with its terror, his sickness sings, demanding he rid the place of evil. Amaya Paquette is Festival's beautiful mystery. She spends her days caring for her younger brother and her nights transforming into Esmeralda, dancing for greedy eyes and shameless lips. Although she longs for love, she shies away from companionship, afraid of being abandoned again. When Father Cade lays eyes on Amaya, he finds himself ensnared, convinced she's using witchcraft to lure him to her. He can't eat, can't breathe, can't think unless it's of her. And temptation is a devastating mistress. She's his weakness, so he decides he'll be her demise, even if it means killing the only woman he might ever love. And this one, I did like this one because I think Amaya's brother is on the spectrum, I think, if I remember correctly. And that's kind of what I liked about this one. So I really like that little bit of representation in this book. So that's this one. Okay, and then the very last one is Little Mermaid inspired. It's Hexed. And this one is the thickest one out of the bunch. And in this one, you follow Vanessa Anderson, who has never been good. She wasn't good enough for her parents, and she isn't good enough for the gangster uncle who took her in after they died. But she's cunning, beautiful, dutiful to her uncle's demands, and she doesn't have time for a moral compass anyway. When her runaway cousin returns to their coastal southern town, she brings a man with her, and Vanessa soon realizes he's the only one who's seen her for her. But there's one problem. She can never have him. Enzo, lover boy Mariano, is a wealthy businessman by day and a prince of the underworld by night. Underboss to a notorious mafia syndicate, he answers to no one except his father, the strongest don in the Northeast. When he's tasked with marriage, Enzo doesn't think twice until he meets his fiance's cousin. Vanessa is everything he never knew he wanted, bewitching him with her sultry voice and supple curves. But Enzo learned long ago that for a man like him, life is better without the things he wants. Words today. When plans unravel and temptation sings its siren song, they'll both have to choose what's more important, duty to their families or forbidden love that was never supposed to be. Okay, so like I said, this is spicy dark romance books, and just look into any potential content or trigger warnings if that is a concern for you. Again, I've linked it down below in the description for easy access. You can also access content warnings on Fable or the StoryGraph app, and you just have to type in the book and then go to the content warnings section of each of the books on both apps, and very easy access to content warnings and trigger warnings. So now, also one last little note, again, I included the FAQs for Emily McIntire's website down below in the description. But this is not a series you have to read in order. I kind of read them in order. Like I read the first 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, and then I read the last 2 out of order just because I read Hexed during the summer, kind of near the end of summer, and then I read Crossed in fall, autumn, kind of at the beginning of October. So you do not have to read these in order of publication dates. Again, it's standalones and are connected by the thematic of being villain gets love interest. So there's that. You do not have to worry about reading it in order. Now, to talk about ranking them, and one moment, I was gonna do first place to last place, but I'm gonna do it the other way around now. And this, it's me ranking them is not saying that some are worse or better than others. This is just my opinion with how I read and consumed these books and took in the information and the stories and the plot lines and character building, plot building, world development, stuff like that. So just my opinions with where they stood in this ranking. So at the bottom is Twisted. Now, part of this is just the fact that I've never really been a huge Aladdin fan. And like, I love Jasmine and I like the concept of Jasmine and Jafar getting together, but part of it is the fact that I've just never been a big Aladdin fan. And also too, I'm not a huge fan. Like, this is kind of like a spin-off almost of the fake dating trope. Like, it's a fake marriage trope. I'm marrying someone to be with someone, I'm marrying one person to be with a second person, and then the fake couple is falling in love. So, which, like, I don't mind, it's just I'm not super fond of that kind of trope. And just because you know who's gonna end up together in the end. But I do like the concept. I did like the concept of this. It didn't really stick out to me as much as some of the others did. And again, I'm not the biggest Aladdin fan, so that was a large factor into this one. And then next up, the 5th one in this pile is Scarred. And again, like, this one just didn't stick out to me. It stuck out to me slightly more than Twisted, but this one just, like, I like The Lion King. It's more so that I like the music in The Lion King, but like, I'm more of a fan of Lion King than of Aladdin, but like, it's largely because of the music. And I like the concept of Sarabi and Scar getting together and them being a kind of couple. And again, this is closest to the enemies to lovers trope. This is closest to like a true, genuine interpretation of that trope, where it's like both sides hate each other and they're enemies because they're from different kingdoms, and she's set out to kill them, and he's also trying to take over the throne. So it's like they are enemies and then they become lovers. So I think it has that step up over Twisted because of the trueness to the trope. So that's what Scarred is. So Scarred is in 5th place, Twisted in 6th. And then in 4th place is Wretched. I always really liked The Wizard of Oz, and I did like Wicked when it was the Broadway version. We went to see it at the Pantages Theater when I was really young. So I do really like Wicked, and that's why it's kind of like a step above Scarred and Twisted. And I do like the concept of, I did really like the concept of Fiero and Elphaba getting together. And I like also what I found really interesting was the use of like drug use and slight drug abuse in this story. Well, not slight drug abuse, but drug abuse, because poppies are what make, like, the poppy seeds are what create opium, and the Wizard of Oz, like the Wicked Witch of the West, Wicked Witch Elphaba has the field of poppies that Dorothy ends up going through. So I thought incorporating that was a really nice nod to what poppies are, and then as well as that scene in Wizard of Oz. And also, it's like I did like the build up between Evelina and Nicholas, so that's why it's a little bit above the other two. But it's still only in 4th place because the other 3 were a little bit stronger in my opinion. So in 3rd place is Crossed. Again, like, I like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Frollo is one of my favorite villains because of how dark he is, of how twisted he is, of how full on Disney went with his character and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And again, like I mentioned, I do like I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, down in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure her brother, Quentin, is on the spectrum. Anyway, so again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum. I don't quite remember what he has, but this one, great representation, and I do like that dichotomy that Father Cade presents within his character, and kind of like it delves deeper into what Frollo was going through. Not that that excuses what Frollo did in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but like it delves a little bit deeper into that kind of psyche and that kind of mental grappling with being a member of the church and being very righteous and very self-righteous, and also kind of giving into more primal urges. And then also you have like Esmeralda, who kind of like low rung. Not a lot of people think highly of that kind of a person, and in this case, because she works as a dancer, not a lot of people value that profession or see a lot of value in it. So it's like there's a whole lot of dichotomies in this book, which I really appreciated. So there's this one, but again, like I personally really have to be in the right mindset for Hunchback of Notre Dame, as weird as that sounds. So it's like it's a little bit lower, but it is 3rd. So, and then the next one is Hooked, and this one is 2nd just because I feel like it was one of the stronger books, because I feel like that probably is because it was the first of the series. And honestly, it's like, again, kind of like with Aladdin, I'm not a really big Peter Pan fan, and I think largely that was because when I was little, like I didn't really like the movies where it was a male main, or not a male main character, but like a boy main character, because I had a little bit of a harder time relating to that. And I don't really like Peter Pan, I don't like Pinocchio, I don't like Aladdin as much. I liked them, but I had a harder time connecting, so I didn't like them as much. And again, I think this one is a little bit stronger because it was the first book, as weird as that sounds. And then I also like that kind of like the dichotomies this explores with relationships, like age gap stuff, and then all the jazz. I don't want to spoil too much, so I like some of the relationships that it explores in this book. And then first, if you haven't guessed it already, is Hexed, and a lot of this is exploration into relationships and just like how family dynamics work, how parental and paternal relationships work, and you know, like finding someone despite everything you might think. So I really like this one. This one is in 1st place. It did take me a little bit to figure out this ranking, just because there were some books that, especially like the first 3, that were like kind of going back and forth with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place with those spots. But honestly, like once I kind of put Hexed next, once I put this into 1st spot, that just kind of made the most sense. So there's that. So again, I wanted to keep this spoiler free just because I don't want to talk too much about the spoilers, but that is my ranking for the Never After novels series and those specific books. Again, stuff is linked down below in the description, and if you have any thoughts about these books, comment down below, or how you would rank them, comment down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.